What is happening to our spiritual giants? First Bishop T.D. Jakes, then David and Tamala Mann, now Bishop J. Drew Sheard finds himself at the center of a growing storm. The internet is on fire with disturbing allegations, leaked messages, and quiet murmurs that refuse to fade. But nothing could have prepared us for what came next. In a moment no one expected, his own daughter, Kierra Sheard, steps forward, and what she reveals changes everything. What Kierra Sheard revealed has left the faith community shaken, sparking disbelief and soul-searching across the country. Her words weren't just emotional, they were explosive, casting a harsh light on the very foundation of the Church of God in Christ. It's one thing when the public speculates about gospel icons and spiritual leaders, but when a daughter speaks out, the silence becomes deafening. In a year already rocked by controversy, from Bishop T.D. Jakes' sudden withdrawal from ministry to Tamala Mann's emotional health revelations, Bishop J. Drew Sheard is now caught in the eye of a digital storm. But what's truly fueling the fire isn't just another round of online gossip. It's the deeply personal truth Kierra shared, a revelation that cracked the entire story wide open. Her statement has forced even the most loyal followers to question everything they thought they knew. Today, we're peeling back the layers, digging into what really happened, and uncovering the painful truths that some hoped would stay buried. From the subtle warning signs no one noticed to the viral bombshells that rocked the Church of God in Christ community, this story goes far deeper than headlines. You're about to hear what was whispered behind closed doors, the private truths that were never meant to go public, and how it all ties into a growing leadership crisis shaking the very pillars of gospel music's most revered names. This isn't just another scandal, it's a battle between silence and truth, between protecting a legacy and confronting painful realities. And at the heart of it all lies a truth bomb straight from the Sheard family home, one so emotional, so raw, it left an entire congregation stunned. This is more than a story, it's a turning point. So settle in, hit that like button, and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will forever change the way you see Bishop J. Drew Sheard, and the legacy he's built. Bishop J. Drew Sheard is no stranger to the spotlight. As the presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ, one of the world's largest and most influential Pentecostal denominations, he spent decades commanding respect through his unwavering leadership, magnetic presence, and powerful family legacy, especially alongside his wife, gospel icon Karen Clark Sheard. To many, he has symbolized spiritual strength, unity, and an unshakable moral compass. But recently, a shift has begun. And for those paying close attention, the cracks were already forming. It started as whispers in the digital dark, anonymous posts, vague tweets, glitchy screen recordings, and blurred videos all hinting that something was unraveling behind the scenes. Most brushed it off as baseless chatter, the kind of noise that always follows public figures. But this time, the noise refused to fade. Instead, it grew louder, more specific, and more personal, raising questions that the church community can no longer ignore. However, many started to make connections when similar storms began to affect other gospel figures, such as Bishop T.D. Jakes stepping back due to mounting suspicions and David and Tamala Mann coping with their own set of viral rumors. Then the real thing happened. People began researching, retrieving previous interviews, interpreting body language, evaluating sermons, and sharing snippets of church services that appeared ordinary at first but now had deep significance. Additionally, others observed that Bishop Sheard had been conspicuously missing from a few significant events earlier this year that he would typically oversee or highlight. People in the neighborhood began to wonder if he was concealing something. Was internal turmoil plaguing COGIC leadership? More significantly, what caused his often outspoken and public family to go so silent all of a sudden? However, the silence on the internet was short-lived. A series of leaks that purportedly involved discussions amongst the denomination's highest executives started to circulate. Despite the lack of official confirmation, these leaks presented a concerning image. Behind-the-scenes conflict with other well-known pastors, power conflicts inside COGIC, and covert pressure tactics to stifle public criticism. Bishop Sheard's daughter intervened just as things were starting to calm down. The true narrative starts there, so let's go back and find out where the silence came from before we discuss what she disclosed. And believe me, you will reconsider everything after hearing what follows. Bishop Sheard and the Kojic leadership had been the subject of intense rumors for months. However, none anticipated that the bishop's own house would provide the first concrete confirmation of anything. Yes, exactly. Kierra Sheard Kelly, his daughter, startled her admirers by breaking her silence in a way that was both delicate and illuminating. You already know that Kierra is more than simply the bishop's daughter if you're familiar with gospel music and religion culture. She is a highly regarded personality in the gospel industry, a Grammy nominee, and a formidable vocalist. She has always been seen as graceful, poised, and fiercely loyal to her family. People therefore pay attention when she speaks. And that's exactly what happened on a calm Sunday night. Kierra shared a mysterious message on her Instagram stories, which consisted of white lettering on a basic black background. It said, "Silence isn't always strength. It's survival at times." No names, no tags, and no additional justification. However, it didn't take long for industry insiders and gospel fans to begin making connections. Was she talking about the storm that was still raging around her father? Was she referring to her personal encounters with the demands of belonging to a prominent religious family? Or was this a more serious critique of the church's own crisis management practices? What the internet does best is what it did. Twitter was flooded with screenshots. In search of hints, TikTok users began analyzing each line in her most recent music releases. All of a sudden, Kierra was popular on gospel blogs around the country. However, it didn't end there. A few days later, Kierra was questioned about leadership transparency in the church during a live-stream Q&A session on a panel on Christian women's empowerment. She waited for a long time, obviously considering what she was about to say. Then she said this. "Our generation, in my opinion, is sick of acting like they're flawless and of pretending. And I'm not referring to the congregation alone. I'm referring to leaders, individuals we adore, and people we looked up to growing up. There are some private discussions that must be shared publicly. Even if it means everything to us." Like thunder, her words echoed through the atmosphere. The meaning became evident all of a sudden. This was not merely ambiguous criticism. It was a personal matter. It has to do with her father. It had to do with the church. And this had to do with a terrible reality that had been brewing for far too long in the background. She didn't specifically name Bishop Sheard, which is even more telling, but she didn't have to. More was conveyed by the emotion in her eyes, the tightness in her stance, and the weight in her voice than by any headline could. And you could see something had cracked if you were paying close attention. It's critical to recognize how uncommon this is. In the gospel world, families like the Sheards are considered royalty. The money they use is loyalty. Public perception is sacred. Therefore, it is more than simply drama when someone from the royal court begins to reveal the truth. That is an indication that the activities taking place behind closed doors are becoming unmanageable. This is the point at which things become even more intricate. While many younger Christians who are fed up with hypocrisy and leadership were moved by Kierra's remarks, others in the church hierarchy weren't so delighted. Quiet mutterings of dishonor, family embarrassment, and even calls to defend the bishop at all costs began to appear on social media. And in some groups of conservative churches. Was Kierra jeopardizing her familial ties, her platform, or was she just speaking what too many others were scared to say? Although we don't yet have the complete answer, her statement has unquestionably had a significant impact. We're still only beginning, though, because nobody anticipated what happened next. The Church of God in Christ, or COG, is a movement rather than merely a church. It has more than 6 million members worldwide and has significant cultural, political, and spiritual sway. Internal intricacies, hierarchies, and regrettably, unseen struggles that the majority of the congregation is unaware of accompany such power. Bishop J. Drew Sheard was given a position that not only put him at the top of Kojic but also made him the face of contemporary Pentecostalism in America following the death of presiding Bishop Charles E. Blake. It was a smooth changeover in public. However, behind the scenes, those close to the church say otherwise. There have long been rumors of conflict between bishops from various jurisdictions, between younger voices demanding responsibility, transparency, and innovation, and between elder leadership holding fast to tradition. Bishop Sheard was attempting to maintain equilibrium in a system that was collapsing beneath the surface while under that pressure. One anonymous church elder claimed that the church is no longer functioning as a body in an email exchange that was leaked and shared on a few faith-based blogs earlier this year. It functions as a brand. Decisions are being made based on appearances rather than morality. Although the statement was never formally acknowledged, it caused a stir in the online community and sent shockwaves across leadership circles. Was there internal dysfunction at Kojic? Were putting legacy and image ahead of justice and the truth? This is when the situation becomes particularly problematic. Several longtime Kojic pastors either resigned or quietly stepped down from important positions at the same time Kierra broke her silence. There were no explanations or public declarations, just a spooky, quiet tide of departures. However, many of these same people had publicly criticized the leadership's culture of repression in private. Some brought up the church's past handling of high-profile crises, including claims of financial mismanagement, emotional abuse, and even the repression of whistleblowers. People were especially concerned about the pattern of concealment, even though none of these were publicly verified. Worse, there were increasing reports that loyalty pacts were being created in secret. Basically unofficial arrangements whereby important leaders would cover one another in times of crisis, maintain their silence, and safeguard their reputations. Bishops were no longer the only thing being sheared. It was about a culture of cover-up and fear that had spread throughout one of the world's most influential black religious organizations. Who was caught in the middle, you ask? Kierra. Some church elders reportedly discreetly counseled her following her public remarks and that mysterious Instagram story, according to insiders. According to some, she was pressured to clarify or perhaps take back her remarks from the women's panel. Kierra didn't back down, though. Rather, she fell silent once more. However, this time the silence felt distinct, deliberate, and determined. Because no amount of politics can keep the truth from coming to the fore for very long. In actuality, these conflicts are not brand new. For years, even decades, they have been simmering beneath the surface. However, the curtain is coming down in the era of social media. Additionally, the younger generation is increasingly seeking answers after previously sitting quietly in the pews. We grew up loving Kojic, but we're not going to keep loving a lie, one user wrote in a tweet in response to the scandal. You must regain our trust if you wish to have it. Strong remarks, but we haven't even discussed how this relates to the other gospel leaders who have been affected by this digital upheaval. Jake Jakes, Bishop TD, and the Mann family. You'll see how deep this rabbit hole goes when we do. It began with a few little cracks that were first hardly noticeable, but now it's starting to resemble a spiritual earthquake. The dispute involving gospel royalty, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and Bishop J. Drew Sheard. The instances involving David and Tamala Mann are no longer isolated. A distinct pattern of pressure, quiet, exposure, and repercussions is starting to emerge. Therefore, it is necessary to ask what goes on in the contemporary black church behind closed doors. Let's go back a little. Bishop T.D. Jakes shocked everyone when he abruptly declared that he was leaving active ministry just months before the Bishop Sheard issue started to rage online. According to the official statement, it was a season of rest and rejuvenation that was necessary and that marked a peaceful transition. Social media, however, presented a different picture. Viral cryptic tweets. Former members are chatting on TikTok about the drama that goes on behind the scenes, the hazy financial boundaries, and the mounting strain in the Potter's House infrastructure. Jake, who many believed to be untouchable, was suddenly the subject of circulating rumors. David and Tamala Mann, who were adored for their grounded marriage, stirring testimonies, and decades of devoted ministry, were under scrutiny just as the news was starting to settle. After Tamila's heartfelt prayer recordings, there were abrupt allegations that David was avoiding public life. Some said they had a tense marriage. Others cited internal problems within their management team or a private health crisis. The silence and change in tone were sufficient to get many to wonder, what's really going on with our leaders, even though no scandal involving obvious receipts ever surfaced. Enter Bishop Sheard now, with his daughter speaking out, COG resignations, and serious concerns about openness being voiced. Managed. A storm that seems much larger than any one leader is brewing. Is it possible that these figures, who were previously praised as spiritual giants, are collapsing due to antiquated procedures, irrational expectations, and a church culture that penalizes integrity? Many people are beginning to think so. This was just presented on the podcast of a reputable gospel blogger. We have created platforms for our leaders, however we haven't created secure areas for them to crumble. So, after they do wreck down, they both go silent or their entire recognition burns with them. And that is the real sin here. That quote hit hard because it exposes a painful fact. Our spiritual leaders are human and they are navigating pressures most people could not consider. But instead of aid, they may be regularly met with expectation, judgment, and a demand for perfection. In all three of these cases, Jake, the persons, and Sheard, there may be a constant thread, a shift in tone or public presence that fans immediately noticed. Unstated anxiety within the ministry or own family structure, public cryptic messaging or emotional cues that hint at internal chaos, a reluctance to absolutely address the troubles ensuing in confusion and speculation. And the result, a network of believers who are harmed, disenchanted, and more skeptical than ever. But perhaps the maximum risky part of all that is how each chief attempted to navigate the typhoon quietly backstage without direct engagement. That silence simplest fueled the fireplace. And now human beings like Kierra Sheard are left to pick up the pieces. Now not best seeking to protect their family's legacy, but also looking to live out their faith in a system it truly is starting to crack below the stress. Is this a twist of fate? Or is the church experiencing an extended late reckoning? Many believe we are in a season of non-secular exposure wherein what's been hidden is eventually being discovered, no longer to spoil, however to heal. Due to the fact for authentic restoration to happen, the truth need to pop out. However, here's the component that has every person protecting their breath. What if there are more names coming subsequent? What if this is not the cease of the list, but simply the start? And what Kierra hinted at may not just be about her father, however approximately a tradition of silence that runs across a whole generation of leaders. Now that the curtain has been pulled back, the query striking heavy in the air is this. What takes place now? For Bishop J. Drew Sheard. The strain is unlike something he has faced in his ministry earlier then. While he hasn't made a direct public announcement addressing the debate surrounding his daughter's remarks, the silence itself is being interpreted as a reaction. Supporters are calling for clarity. Critics are calling for responsibility, and others are quietly looking, ready to look if the leadership of Kojic will finally cope with the growing divide among subculture and transparency. The aftershock is already being felt. Some individuals have begun stepping away from Kojic-affiliated churches, not because they have got misplaced faith in God, but due to the fact they're wondering the systems built round personalities, strength, and politics. Meanwhile, more youthful believers, in particular millennials and Gen Z, are stressful a brand new form of church tradition, one which values reality over titles, healing over hiding, and authenticity over appearances. And then there's Kierra Sheard. Her choice to talk, even subtly, has opened a door that may not easily be closed. She can also have supposed to certainly express frustration or talk her truth. But what she did changed into spark a fireplace that many accept as true with needed to burn. And though a few in the church have criticized her for airing family subjects, others are calling her a voice for an era it really has been silenced for too long. What's next for her? Simplest time will tell. But one factor is obvious. Kierra has selected braveness over comfort. And in doing so, she's emerged as an image now not of rebel, but of reformation. However, the tale would not stop there. Across pulpits, pews, and institution chats nationwide, the communication is changing. People are asking harder questions. They're now not content with polished statements and rehearsed sermons. They're asking approximately actual leadership, actual recuperation, real fact. And that's the aftershock. The only that might shape the destiny of the Black church for generations to come back. We won't have all the answers today, however what we do have is a second. A moment to confront uncomfortable truths, to mirror on who we've improved and why, and to create a brand new route forward that isn't built on silence and shame, however on honesty, humility, and recovery. Because if we don't, the following headline might be even extra devastating. And the subsequent voice silenced might be the one that would have stored us all. So now I ask you, do you believe the church is prepared for a brand new sort of management? Or are we still clinging to an vintage model it truly is quietly falling aside? Drop your thoughts within the remarks underneath. This is more than gossip. This is about religion, electricity, family, and the painful fact that once in a while even our strongest leaders are suffering backstage. If this video opened your eyes, supply it a thumbs up, share it with a person who wishes to pay attention to this, and hit that subscribe button so that you do not miss what is coming subsequent. Due to the fact we're simply getting began. Live tuned. Live conscious and specifically stay